Welcome to Think and Grow Rich with Life Mastery Consultant Christy Corradi. This is week 2.
We are in the deep dive study of Think and Grow Rich, and this is week 2. We're going to start right now with our gratitudes and proud of. And so take a minute right now and think of your gratitudes and proud of. And I'll start with this morning. I was sitting doing my meditation, and outside of our window is this amazing blooming crepe myrtle, just vibrant magenta. And I just was so grateful for my eyes, for my sight this morning, and the sight to see this beautiful world. And my proud of is in how I have chosen to engage with my dad as he's going through and the dad help thing, more than just my dad, as we go through his end-of-life journey. So what we're doing in Think and Grow Rich is that we started out, so there's 13 principles that we're going to study in here. And the first one was desire, and that's just like the creative way. We're in the create phase where we really sit down and take that deeper dive into what it is that we would love and to really create a clear vision. And there's just a slight different edge on this than we've learned in the creative way. So I think it's really great to look at all of this from various different directions. So desire, and we're going to come back to that today because I don't want to leave that behind. I want to make sure that we have a really clear desire as we take this into this next work. I want to talk a little bit about today's lesson, and it doesn't mean that we have to get through this all in one day because there might be a deeper dive that we want to take in areas, and even going back to a previous point that we want to explore, such as desire. But this week's reading was on faith. And as I read this, I really had a little bit of a difficult time finding faith in this chapter. And I kept thinking this is more about what step 3 is, which is auto-suggestion, or what we call affirmation. And so I really had to take a deeper look at and a deeper understanding of what faith means and how it relates to one of these principles of how we can create the life that we love living. So I did this really simple thing. I went back to the dictionary, and then I took that definition and took a look at what Napoleon Hill is really trying to say here and what we can glean and get out of this here. So the definition of faith that I'm going to pull out of this is fidelity to one's promises. Fidelity to one's promises. You know, being true to your promises. Now, these are promises to yourself, foremost. Sincerity of intentions. Belief and trust in loyalty to God, universe, quantum field. And this is one I really love. Firm belief in something which there is no proof of. Firm belief in the invisible principles and how they work. That's the deeper connection of the definition of faith to this work, is firm belief in something which there is no proof of. Complete trust. Something that is believed especially with strong conviction, without question. And so I took a look at why is he doing auto-suggestion here. And I loved that he put in here this concept of how to develop faith. And I took a look at what this really was. And you know, what it came down to was a real sense of confidence. This is about building our trust and confidence. I think trust and confidence equals faith. And so why he uses the examples here of Charles Schwab, and I think some people find these stories really exciting and enthusiastic, but for me they're just kind of like, okay then, but I did it. And this is somebody's dream. And how do you create your own dream. You have enough confidence in yourself being able to produce this project, vision, idea, that if you, like Charles Schwab, get up in front of all these millionaires, that what comes out of you is that sureness and passion. Sureness and passion. So you don't go in there. So I was talking actually to Jerry about this morning, and I said, what if Martin Luther King got up there and said, I'd really kind of have this dream that maybe we could all go out there and love one another and go beyond race and economics and whatever. It would really be nice if we could do that. But instead, what he did was he got up there in front of everybody and said, I have a dream. And there was no doubt in the minds of people that were listening to that, and us as we listened to it over and over again, that his dream was possible and becoming real. I have a dream. There was no doubt in his mind that he would not have gotten up in front of all of these people and said, let's move towards this. Let's create this. If he didn't believe that it was possible, if he had any doubt in his mind, or that it was 50%, if we could just get 50% of the people to feel this way, right? No, it's that conviction, that confidence, and that's why in this material he uses the idea that we work with autosuggestion, which is affirmations. So how to develop faith? Well, the other thing that I came back down to on this is like my faith. I always thought faith was my faith in the invisible principles, that they exist, almost, like that loving presence. And yet when I read this, I realized that it goes the next step deeper, and that is to find that way to create the conviction within myself that I equal the energy of that love of the invisible principles, that love of the universe. And this is why I want to go back to our desire and make sure that we're really concrete on our desire or our vision, that we have the conviction that we can, at least in a portion of who we are in the moment when we do our daily meditation, that we have a portion of us that can really get behind and see and feel that vibrational match of this is already true. This is who I am. This is my very DNA. Now, I was listening to someone else. I didn't even write down her last name. Her first name is Dawn. She was really interesting. She took a look at that our limiting beliefs that we have learned are fractures in our experience. And I being a visual person, I can really see that. And I've been addressing a really core belief, how I let things get in the way of my greater expansion of my own life, as I've created this belief that every time I go on vacation, my father ends up in the hospital. Now, is that true? Well, there's a good percentage of the time that that's happened, but there's two parts of this. Number one is, what do I do with that? But number two, what kind of soul agreement have I made? This is really a profound moment for me, and I hope that I can express it to you. I had this deeper understanding that there was some kind of soul agreement, how my dad and I chose to interact through life and what role he was going to play in my life. I don't know, sit with that for a minute and think about that, how we have these soul agreements with, Dalai Lama calls it, our sacred friends. It's like our sacred friends. This aspect of my relationship with my father is a sacred friend moment. And how I came to realize that was actually listening to Felicia speak. She's another life coach. And she was talking about how you come up against the terror barrier. And it's like, what are the things that bring you to the terror barrier, or that place where we feel just not only limited, but it just is. but really it's about pushing through that terror barrier. And actually, this is a moment for me of being willing to claim who I am, what my life purpose is, and to be confident enough to move through it, even in the face of dealing with my father's illness. So, getting back to this woman that I listened to, she talks with the fracture. So that's a fracture in my belief system, right? That those kind of things set me back. And maybe I'll do it later. And, there's always time. And really, what it is the only moment that there is now. The breath that we take right now is our only breath. And so we want to take our desire, our vision, and be in that moment and breathe that only breath in that moment of full-on knowing that it is in existence now. And this is part of transcending time and space that we get to learn and understand by knowing these invisible principles and how they work. So what we want to create is this frequency to be whole again. And we take a glance backwards to see where the things are that move us up to the terror barrier and what we can use to move us to that frequency of becoming whole, to move through that terror barrier. And this woman, Dawn, talked about 3 interference patterns. And for me, this was very insightful. So this is just a way to take a look at what are the paradigms that are running us. So I want to say that these are great tools for us to figure out what they are. We don't have to uncover everything. And I just want to share this with you. So one of the 3 interference patterns is a missing aspect of ourselves, a disassociation. And it's really clear to see this in psychology. So what happens in our developmental phases, if we don't get the love and care and nurturing as a child that we need, there is a part of our psychic development that is missing. And if it's really a great wound, like some of the clients I work with as an art therapist, then they don't have that part of them. And there is that sense of dissociation. And I've had some experience with working with multiple personalities, and it's now called DID, dissociative identity disorder. And the reason that happens, what happens is that they create a system in supporting themselves because something went missing in their development. And so they create these different parts, they're different psyche digits. So there is a piece missing. And what the reparative work in that, and I'm just bringing this up because I think it's really interesting in looking at how we can look at our own lives, is that I, as a therapist, help them learn what they didn't learn. So, for example, one client I work with doesn't even know what the developmental stages of growing up is and what it should be. And so we go back and look at those, and then we find ways to parent, if you will, those parts and bring her needs to be met in the current time to heal the past experience. So if we take a look at ourselves and the missing aspects of ourselves, and I think this mostly comes down to self-confidence. What do we believe in? When did we buy into the concept of failure? And that happened to me in a big way when I created a youth program, New Clear Experiences, and it was really widely accepted, but how do I get it to move to the next level? And I thought this must be a not it. With these creative thinking tools that I had created, and that we were implementing and teaching in youth workshops, retreats, and weekends. So I bought into the idea that was basically a failure, and I put it away. I even gave it away to someone else. I said, "Are you interested in doing more with this?" And she said yes, and I actually handed over all the materials to her. So now, right, we believe that's a failure. I believe that's a failure. There's a sense of self-assuredness that I didn't have the confidence in myself or the tools. I want you to know at that point in time, I didn't have the tools to take us to the next step. Now, this is what's evolved. It was like, wow, that is actually a very potent, poignant project, and now is the time for it to be birthed, and that's my creative thinking toolkit. So I've taken that failure It was hidden away and now created it. So anyway, I just wanted to give you a sense of a missing aspect of self. Where can you look for missing aspects of self? The second one is toxic emotion. Okay, this is where we experience an interference pattern, is toxic emotion, an experience of loss and grief. When we let it take over us and become all of us, it becomes toxic. Right now it's a healing experience, but toxic emotions would also be a lack of self-worth, pity, being a victim. All of those emotions that come up around there, those get inside of us, and those interfere with the truth of who we are. And the third, which is what I found really interesting, and I was just, that serendipity, I was just having those thoughts about what I learned and let get inside of me from my parents and my grandparents and their parents. And I thought, this is more in my DNA. And that's the third one, is what is in our DNA, in a sense. What have we, through generations, let get inside of me? When I first started working with the Youth of Religious Sciences, one of the things that we used to work on was breaking the cycle of what we have learned from our parents and our parents' parents, and then, of course, the status quo that's all around us. So I'm going to invite you to take a look this week at where those interference patterns might be affecting you. A missing aspect of yourself, toxic emotions, or your DNA. And so this faith concept and how to develop faith is basically through what he says in here, autosuggestion or affirmation. And why? Because we want it to become the orange juice that's squeezed out of the orange. So that if I would have had this work, say when I developed this program 25 years ago, that when I got squeezed between the, this is not good enough or it's not going anywhere, then there would have been enough inside of me to say, no, I know the truth about this. And that somehow I've had that resilience, and here it is, and actually bigger and better and greater. You don't even need to go back and uproot all of these things. You just go, right now this could be what I'm experiencing now, a limiting thought. So how do I move into an empowerment thought? With the example of my father. So I have actually gotten to feeling some degree of resentment with my father and feel like he just has put the kibosh on my building my business. Every time I go out to do something or even take a vacation or something, victim, 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 blame, 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 right? I'm blaming him for my experience. And whether there's a soul agreement or not, if I take a look at that, it just gives me the ability to take a little different angle of it and see, how can I really feel empowerment through this experience? I really see that it's my self-doubt and believing. I let my dad's stuff get in the way of my belief in myself to become the best creator, inventor, life coach in the world. That means I don't have that in me, right? I don't have that belief in me yet to the degree that when I get squeezed up against that. And what happens to me when I go into this mode with my dad is I can't even get myself around my business mind. So I took a look at that yesterday, and actually with the help of my coach, which is really important because that was the other deeper learning in here, because actually, when I went to hear Felicia, she went up against this with her husband. And how did she get through it? She got through it because she had the right-hand support of her coach. And my coach, oh man, did she call me on this. I mean, she was actually scolding me yesterday because of these thoughts that I was, and she goes, you are I can talk to you this way because you know. But look at where you're going. Look at what path you're going down right now. Thank you for that. So I made some decisions, and I sent a text to my siblings and said, you know what, I'm overwhelmed. You need to step up here. And my brother happens to be in town now visiting my dad, and I just put all the paperwork that needed to be handled in front of him, and I said, take care of this. When there's this belief that I have to take care of it. I'm the only one. And he even said that to me the other day when I was talking to him about this stuff. He says, I hope you're just bouncing these ideas off of me because I have no idea. I'm like, you better have some ideas. I'm not in this on my own. And then this is also part of the DNA for me, was understanding my family belief has been that we can be dreamers, but we're not dream builders. And so it's been a little bit scary to be a dreamer because my parents and my grandparents all were dreamers and they all failed in a certain degree, in a large degree actually. And so this is the pattern that's in my DNA. And so now knowing that, I get to say, I get to break that cycle right now. And I get to be a dream builder. I get to go to the next step and see my dreams become realities. And I have to tell myself that every day, I have to tell myself that to get it in me. And that's what the auto-suggestion is about, or the affirmation. So that's why I wanted to go back to the desire and the vision, okay? Because if your desire and your vision is not clear, what do you have to get in you every day? What do you have to practice with every day? So you're creating a vibrational match. It doesn't need to say everything. Such as is a great term. It doesn't need to be logical. It is a vibrational field that you're creating here. You get to go the next step with your vision and take one thing out of each of those, like the job that you want to create. I want you to write a day in the day of. Now, this does not write it in concrete as far as the how and the where. It puts it in a vibrational frequency. So that vibrational frequency that you hold right there for that travel day, that travel moment, that glimpse into that, now creates your low pressure front, and everything rushes in to make that happen. Now, does it happen in this little town in Minnesota? Maybe not. It might happen in Tucson. Oh, but what if I change my mind? That's okay. Yeah. We're creating a vibrational match here. And then to move it into the faith piece is just what you're doing, reading it every day, but more than reading it, being inside of it, so that that breath that you take in that moment as you are reading it and being in it is you in it. To really get this at this deeper level, that it's one breath at a time. It's like, yes, absolutely, it's one breath at a time. And that breath must be breathed within our vision, as well as in the current moment. And since it's breathed in the vision and in the moment, that's when we transcend time. Because time is specifically for us to get to meet each other on the road of life. That's the time is for us to have a wedding on Saturday. You know, it is not because the reality is that we're limited by time. It's simply by our choice in being here in the human experience, we have chosen to abide by time until we understand the invisible principle. Then we transcend time. And we do that also in the practice of being in our vision and the current moment at the same time. So one of the things that we work with in time and space is that we, in this physical form, have our central nervous system. And our central nervous system is designed to serve us unless we let it get the better of us. So with the date, we're not limited here. You can have goals along the way, okay? And that's why we work with a vision, and we set an intention, and we work backwards. So we have 3 to 5 year goal. So for your daily practice, if I can dream it, it already exists. Isn't that a powerful statement? Or since I have dreamed it, it already exists. And when you get in that, in the moment, it already exists, that's when you transcend time and space, time especially, and that's when you become that low pressure front. And so you want to continue to be in that every day. Hold that vibrational frequency. And if you hold that vibrational frequency, all your needs are met. We just take it one day at a time while breathing in our vision. Breathing, living in our vision. At each moment that we can do that, not only our morning practice, but how many times throughout the day can we breathe the breath? You know how they say within the oxygen is all, the same oxygen that Einstein breathes or Jesus breathes. Well, we're breathing that oxygen of all that we have accomplished.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. Here are 2 exclusive podcast listener offers. First, for a limited time, podcast listeners can work with Christy in person at a deep discount. Christy offers a unique coaching modality of her own creation that helps clients discover their own answers to where they're stuck and how to move forward. As one of her clients puts it, it always works. This transformative process is designed to help you identify blocks and create breakthroughs in your personal and professional life. As a thank you for listening to the podcast, you're eligible for a special discount. Normally $97 for a half-hour introductory session, podcast listeners get a $70 discount automatically applied if you use this link, masteringtheartoflife.com/podcast-IWD-offer. That's masteringtheartoflife.com/podcast-IWD-offer. And that link is in the podcast general description as well. Second, you can get the entire library of Mastering the Art of Life with PDF notes and worksheets for each lesson, plus bonuses at no cost at masteringtheartoflife.com/9-month opt-in, all one word, masteringtheartoflife.com/9-month opt-in. That link is also in the general podcast description.